On the 16th of November 2019, shock and grief were spread all over Kenya as the heavily decomposing bodies of Joyce Syombua and her two children were exhumed from a shallow grave at the Ngithu area in Nanyuki. The three had been missing for over 20 days. After the retrieval of the bodies, all focus was shifted to Army Major Peter Mugure, who was the ex-husband to Joyce Syombua. Welcome back to the Insight Edition. My name is Yusuf, and on today's episode of Criminal Diaries, we're going to look into the sinister case of Peter Mugure. Peter Mugure, who hails from Lari in Kiambu County, met Joyce Syombua while she was still in high school. The two got into a love relationship, which they officiated immediately Joyce finished schooling. After moving in together, Joyce Syombua got pregnant with their first child, Shanice Maua. Unfortunately for the couple, they got separated just 8 months after moving in together. Joyce moved back to her mother's residence back in Nairobi and started to work at a bakery. It might sound strange, but even after their separation, the two had an on and off relationship, which resulted to Joyce getting pregnant for the second time, and that was how their second child, Prince Michael, came to be. Strangely, Army Major Peter Mugure denied siring Michael. He accused his estranged wife of cheating, and as punishment, he refused to ever cater for the children's needs. That included food and school fees. After his awkward decision, Joyce had no other option but to sue him for child support. In the court, Peter now denied both children, Shanice Maua and Prince Michael. He said that the only way he could provide for the children is after a DNA test was conducted, and it proved that he was their biological father. After the DNA test was conducted, the result proved that Peter Mugure was indeed the father. The court ordered him to man up and pay child support. The court's decision didn't sit well with Major Peter Mugure. He paid the child support for 3 months, each time complaining to his friends how much he hated that arrangement. In October 2019, Peter Mugure asked Joyce Syombua to bring their children to visit him at the Laikipia Air Base. He told her that he wanted to reconnect with the children since the 11th birthday of Shanice Maua was coming around, and he didn't want to just appear without notice. Since Joyce couldn't deny him the right to meet his kids, she started preparing for the journey. The people who were close to her, including her mother, Elizabeth Malombe, and her friend, Farizana Katengo, advised her against going on this trip, as they couldn't figure out why all of a sudden Peter Mugure was very interested in mending the relationship with his children. Joyce might have considered their advice, but the law forbade her from denying the children's father the right to see his children. So, on the 25th of October 2019, together with her children, Joyce Syombua took a matatu all the way from Nairobi to Nanyuki. After arriving at Nanyuki, Peter Mugure picked them at the bus station and took them to Laikipia Air Base, where they spent the night. On the evening of Saturday, the 26th of October 2019, something strange happened. Joyce Syombua went silent on her phone. She would neither reply to text messages nor answer phone calls. Her overconcerned friend, Farizana, decided to call Peter Mugure and ask him about the whereabouts of Joyce and her children. Major Peter Mugure responded by saying that he had already dropped Joyce and the kids at a bus station where they boarded a Nairobi-bound matatu and left. He suggested that maybe her phone had switched off. Sunday came, and still no one had heard anything about Joyce Syombua or her two children. The friend, Farizana Katengo, suggested to Syombua's mother that they should file a missing persons report, as this was not normal, given the circumstances under which the three had disappeared. They reported the case on the same Sunday, and the search for Joyce Syombua, Shanice Maua, and Prince Michael began. Peter Mugure was summoned by the police to record a statement, since he was believed to be the last person to have seen Joyce and her two children. At the police station, Peter stated that on Friday, the 25th of October 2019, he went and picked Joyce Syombua and the kids at the bus station after their arrival from Nairobi. He drove them to the Nanyuki Laikipia airbase and had them spend the night at his premises. When Saturday morning came, Joyce called a friend to come take the kids so that she could get some private time with Peter and try to talk out their issues. Peter Mugure stated that at around 9 a.m., the friend came to take the kids. Peter and Joyce escorted them, then came back to the airbase shortly after, where they stayed until 3 p.m. when they went to Kirimara Springs Hotel in Nanyuki for some belated lunch. While at the hotel, Peter claims that he received an emergency call from work, which caused him to change his plans of lodging 2 rooms for his family at the hotel. He had them leave for Nairobi that same evening and even dropped them off at the bus station himself. After this statement, Peter remained a person of interest to the police. Surprisingly, on Monday, the 28th of October 2019, a matatu driver in Nanyuki discovered a phone on one of the passenger seats and he handed it over to his superiors. The phone belonged to Joyce Syombua. It had gone off due to power drainage. When the police questioned the matatu driver, they found out that his movements were not fitting in the narrative Peter Mugure had given them. When the police managed to turn on and unlock the phone, they found out through text and WhatsApp messages from Joyce to Farizana a lot of details about how the weekend went for Joyce and the kids, which were contrary to Peter's statement. The information from the messages was, after arriving at the airbase, Joyce Syombua texted her friend to ensure her that they had arrived safely at about 10:22 p.m. The two texted back and forth, and the conversation ended with Farizana urging Joyce to be careful and sleep with one eye open. The next morning, at around 9:14 a.m., Farizana checked up on Joyce, who ensured her that everything was okay. At 11:21, Joyce texted Farizana that she found the kids missing after going for a shower. She asked Peter about them, and he said that he had taken the kids for a tour around the airbase, but 1 hour had already passed and she was a bit worried. At 11:25, she informed Farizana that Peter had just walked in and they were leaving for Chaka. Joyce Syombua will go silent from this time till around 6:35 p.m. when she reversed called Farizana and told her that she was scared for her kids. She told her that Peter never came back with the kids, and anytime she will ask him where the kids were, Peter will insist that the kids are okay and he had just taken them somewhere for them to spend their time as he spent his time with Joyce Syombua. Later on, Farizana texted Joyce asking her whether the kids were returned, but to her dismay, that message was never replied to. It seems like Joyce Syombua's phone had switched off as it was impossible to reach her. Farizana called Peter Mugure, and after inquiring about her friend, Mugure said that he had dropped them off at the bus station and they had boarded a matatu and left for Nairobi. When the news of the disappearance of Joyce Syombua and her children, Shanice, Maua, and Prince Michael, started circulating on television and social media, a taxi driver from Nanyuki went to the police station with information about a strange phone call that he had received from Peter Mugure during the weekend. The driver stated that Peter Mugure had called him and made some strange request that he should drive to the airbase with 3 gunny bags and go help him dispose of some luggage. When the driver tried to inquire what kind of luggage Peter was talking about, Peter Mugure refused to give further details and the driver turned down the request. This information, plus the one investigators received from Joyce Syombua's phone, made Peter Mugure to be seen as the main suspect by the law enforcers. On the 15th of November 2019, Major Peter Mugure got arrested by the police while at Nanyuki Airbase. He was taken in for further questioning. It had already been established that he was the prime suspect in the mysterious disappearance of his estranged wife and kids. Just a day later, another person was arrested from the airbase. He was singled out as it had been noticed that he and Mugure were in constant conversation. This time around, the investigators had hit a jackpot as this person will confess to have aided in the disposing of the bodies of Joyce Syombua and her children. The person we are referring to here is Collins Pamba, who was a cleaner and sometimes used as an errand boy at the Nanyuki airbase. It didn't take much time before Collins Pamba gave out the details of how he got himself involved in one of the most controversial murder cases in recent times. Collins Pamba stated that on the 26th of October 2019, Peter Mugure called and instructed him to go to a hotel where they will meet and discuss a job that Collins should go do at the airbase. They met at the hotel and discussed, but it seemed like Peter was secretive about the nature of work he needed to be done. He gave Collins Pamba 100 shillings for a motorcycle ride and told him to go to the airbase. After reaching the airbase, Collins waited for about an hour, but Peter didn't come. Collins Pamba went back home, and while he was there, he checked his phone and noticed that Peter had tried to contact him, but he couldn't get through due to network issues. He called the major at around 10 p.m. and he was instructed to go back to the airbase. At the airbase, the two met in a parking lot. They headed to Peter's unit, and surprisingly, when they got there, Peter opened the opposite door to his, and after the two had entered, he locked the door and pocketed the key. Peter then headed to the bathroom and switched on his phone's flashlight since the bulb at the bathroom didn't work. He asked Collins to come in, and when he entered the bathroom, Collins saw a body of a young girl stuffed in a transparent gunny bag on the floor. Collins got shocked. When Peter noticed that Collins was uneasy, he asked him to never say a word about what he had just seen. Collins was threatened with his life if he tried to leave. Collins was promised that if he cooperated, Peter will make sure that he entered the military. So, Collins Pamba agreed to help as there was no other way out. To his surprise, there was another body in the bathtub stuffed in a gunny bag, and clearly, he could see that this was a young boy. They took the bodies and put them in the trunk of Peter's car. Then they headed back to the unit. This time around, Peter opened his own door. To his surprise, Collins saw another body. When the lights were turned on, this time it was an adult female. He helped Peter Mugure put the body in a gunny bag. Then they tied the bag with a nylon rope, carried it and put it in the trunk where the rest of the bodies were. They used a mat to cover the bodies in the trunk, then they drove out of the base. While driving out, Collins asked Peter why he had killed his family. His response was that he loved Joyce, but she only cared about his money, and she had been unfaithful to him. They drove into a gravesite, to a spot where a grave had already been dug. They proceeded to place the bodies on top of one another in the grave. Then they topped it up with sand and they left. Collins was dropped off at around 1 a.m. and then Peter proceeded back to the airbase. On the 27th of October, Collins received 4,000 shillings from Peter as payment after the dirty job. He was once again assured that he will get accepted into the military. After confessing, Joyce Syombua took the investigators to the site where they had buried Joyce Syombua and her kids. The heavily decomposed bodies of the three were exhumed on the 16th of November 2019. After a post-mortem was conducted, it was discovered that the two children had been strangled to death, while Joyce Syombua was hit by a blunt object on the head, which caused severe bleeding in the brain, leading to her death. Joyce Syombua was sentenced to 5 years in prison and also made a state witness against Major Peter Mugure. On his side, Peter Mugure has been in and out of court since 2019. He refused to cooperate and even one time decided to be his own lawyer in court. All in all, he will receive his most deserved judgment when his time comes. There has been a lot of theories surrounding the reason why Peter Mugure killed his family, with a lot of people suggesting that his ego was hurt when Joyce won the court case. What do you think might have been the reason for his crimes?